what skills slash practices did you have from before that you didn't know were going to make a huge difference now?
I think empathy is probably, I mean, Karen, you use the word nurture. And I think I've been able to use the empathy that I have inside me much more. I didn't really, I mean, I'm not a non-empathetic person, but I think there is also, because I'm in a, you know, as I said before, I'm in a fortunate position. I'm in a nice house. I have a lovely husband. You know, I'm probably not as freaked out and stressed as lots of other people, but I'm very, very conscious of how challenging this situation is for lots of people and the 65 people that work for me. And so, and that, you know, and to me, empathy is about understanding that people's lives aren't the same as yours and really involving yourself in their situation. And that goes hand in hand with the ability to listen. So I think one of the things, and I'm not sure this is, I didn't really count it as a skill, but it's just something I've been doing a lot. So my calls with my board directors and my staff are so much more broad than they would have been before. So before we would have been talking about the clients, the work, and now I'm spending a lot more time talking about how they are and how they're dealing with the situation. And I've kind of surprised myself, but I'm not bad at doing that, actually. So I suppose that's the nearest thing. And I don't know if it's a particular skill, it's just something I find is really, really essential. And, you know, we have people who are trying to homeschool and have, you know, 3-year-old children who I think on a straw poll of our staff is probably the most difficult age to have at home right now, because they're not old enough to be able to just get on with stuff and understand, and yet they're not young enough to put down to sleep. So, you know, really that challenge. And then other, as I said, other people's challenges. We have some people who just can't stand not being in an office environment. And just allowing those people to, you know, we said right at the beginning, it's not that we can't solve the problems, but we can listen and help in however we can. And don't expect, just also we said right at the beginning, don't pretend it's great when it's not. Because that's the other thing. I think as a leader, people kind of go, yes, everything's fine. And that's just not helpful. It's not fine. And, you know, I'm not going to take it personally if you're having a really tough time, but it's really helpful to know. And even sometimes, you know, we all do it, don't we? A problem shared is a problem. Thank you. So I think, yeah, that's probably a role that I've been playing more than I would have thought I would have been before.
I've got one. It's not as good as Jane's, but documentation. As a small business, like the thing that really puts you out is your reputation. And so documentation. The client asks for a piece of work, you do it and you highly document it. The reason why it's not just so that it's you can hand over a piece of work is that when anyone goes looking behind you or when anyone comes searching for the thing you've done, there's no questions. There's no, oh, that was a shoddy piece of work. And you can, it almost like, it helps you live up to your name. And so the thing that I realized that I wish I did more of in the beginning was documentation. With documentation, you don't get sued. Without it, it's questionable if you can't protect yourself. And so just stuff like that, I think, is always just good to have, and have good records of not just your financial transactions, but of your work and how you've done it, and make sure your contracts are signed before you start and stuff like that. I think is just essential to your success, because then when you have all those things behind you, supporting you as a foundation, it's just easier to like be successful.
Akil, let me just build on that a little. So one of the things that you should always do with your clients anyway is you have your brief at the beginning.
Yep.
And you have what you call KPIs.
Yep.
And KPIs basically are key performance indicators. So what does success look like for this particular, you know, brief or whatever you're delivering for that client or customer?
Yeah.
At the ending of it, you should be either sitting down with your client, going over those KPIs, or at the different interval points, because sometimes your interaction or your engagement may be, you know, for 12 months or 18 months. So what you want to do is to have regular intervals in which you are reviewing against those KPIs. And quite often during your journey with a client, what your original brief was actually alters.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so I'm just sort of supporting yours on the documentation. So at the ending of it, what you should be then having in your final conversation is you should be handing over your final documentation, as you said, and then a sign off. Yeah, my apologies, everyone. This is Leo and Mabel, who at all points have to interject. Sorry, and at that point, you know, you're very clear about whether or not it's been delivered to the standard, and make sure you get that signed off.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. Community had a really big scare one year, and then ever since then it changed everything. But now when we kick off projects, we literally ask the client, what does success look like for you, and what does a fiasco look like to you? And so we're very clear what failure looks like to them, because failure can be different for everybody. And we ask them on a personal, professional, organizational level, so we get to understand them at each part of their soul, to what really brings them joy and what really brings them like discomfort or fear or failure, or the understanding of failure. And we've run that on every project since, and it's been gold, because we know what failure looks like for the client, so we just avoid it. And it's one of those things where you just articulate what you say just to avoid it, or just to make a new decision.